The Valori had ruled the stars for 12,000 years. In all that time, no one had ever told them no. Their empire spread across 1,000 worlds. Their ships moved faster than light. Their weapons could break moons and boil oceans. They had conquered 17 different species and made them into servants. 9 other species had tried to fight back. Those 9 no longer existed. The Valori lived for 10,000 years. Some of them remembered when their empire was young. They had seen stars born and die. They had watched entire civilizations rise and fall like waves on a beach. To them, other species were like insects, short-lived, weak, useful only for work and worship, and worship they did receive. On every conquered world, the Valori built great temples. The servant species prayed to them, offered them gifts, and called them gods. The Valori did not correct them. Why would they? It was true, was it not? They were immortal. They were powerful. They were beautiful. What else could they be but gods? High Arbiter Tylos was the oldest of them all. He had lived for 11,000 years. He had seen the first conquest and every conquest since. His skin was pale silver, and his eyes glowed like distant stars. He stood 12 feet tall and wore robes made from the silk of a species that had died before humans learned to make fire. Tylos ruled from the crystal throne on their home world. The throne room was larger than most cities. Its walls were made of living crystal that sang soft music when the light touched them. Thousands of servants moved through the halls, heads bowed, never daring to look directly at their masters. On this day, Tylos sat on his throne and listened to reports from across the empire. A mining operation on the third moon of Varus. A new temple completed on conquered world number 12. A small rebellion among the Kethany servants, quickly crushed. Boring matters. Nothing that required his attention. Then Fleet Commander Arian entered the throne room. Arian was young by Valori standards. Only 3,000 years old. He was eager and ambitious, always looking for ways to prove himself. He walked quickly toward the throne and knelt, pressing his forehead to the cold floor. "Rise," Tylos said. His voice echoed through the vast chamber like thunder. "What brings you before me, Commander?" "Great news, High Arbiter," Orion said. He stood but kept his eyes lowered in respect. "Our long-range probes have detected signals from a distant arm of the galaxy. Radio waves, primitive satellites, chemical rockets. There is intelligent life there, but they are still in their infancy." Tylos felt a small spark of interest. It had been 400 years since they found a new species. The last one, the Drathi, had been disappointing. Weak creatures with soft shells and no useful skills. They had been put to work in the acid mines, where they died quickly. "Tell me more," Tylos commanded. Orion waved his hand and a hologram appeared in the air. It showed a small blue planet circling a yellow star. The planet was covered with water and patches of green and brown land. Small satellites orbited it, crude things made of metal and wire. "They call their world Earth," Orion explained. "They call themselves humans. They have only recently discovered space travel. Their ships are slow and primitive. They use chemical fuel and have barely reached their own moon." "Pathetic," Tylos said. But he leaned forward slightly, studying the hologram. "What else?" "They are short-lived, High Arbiter. Their natural lifespan is less than 100 years. They are small, soft, and weak. They have no natural weapons, no claws, no armor. By all measures, they are one of the most fragile species we have ever encountered." Tylos smiled. It was not a kind smile. "And yet they have reached for the stars. There is ambition in them, at least. That can be useful. Ambitious servants work harder. Shall I prepare an uplift fleet?" Orion asked. His voice was eager. An uplift mission meant glory. The commander who brought a new species into the Empire would be honored for centuries. Yes, Tylos decided. Take 5 warships. That should be more than enough for such primitive creatures. Go to their world. Announce our presence. Give them the choice we give all species. The choice was simple. Kneel and serve or die. No species had ever chosen death. Why would they? The Valori were gods. Fighting them was impossible. Even the proudest species understood this once they saw Valori power. Orion bowed deeply. It will be done, High Arbiter. I will bring these humans into the fold. They will learn to worship us as all others do. See that they do, Tylos said. And Orion? Do try to keep some of them alive. We always need more workers. Orion smiled and left the throne room. He walked with pride in his step. This would be easy. The humans had nothing that could threaten the Valori. Their weapons were toys. Their ships were garbage. They would see the Valori fleet and immediately surrender. Perhaps they would cry and beg. Many species did not. As he prepared his fleet for departure, Orion imagined the temples the humans would build. He imagined them on their knees, calling him a god. It was a pleasant thought. He did not imagine what was actually waiting for him. He did not imagine Captain Una Park. 3 days later, 5 Valori warships left for the distant blue planet. They carried enough firepower to crack a continent. They carried soldiers who had never known defeat. They carried the absolute certainty that they were gods and that nothing in the universe could challenge them. They were wrong, but they did not know that yet. Captain Una Park was having a bad day. The coffee machine on the Indomitable was broken again. The heating system in her quarters was making strange noises. Half her crew had the flu, and the other half was complaining about the food. She had not slept properly in 3 days, and her back hurt from sitting in the captain's chair for too long. She was 34 years old. She had been in the United Earth Defense Force for 15 years. She had fought in the colony wars, survived 3 ship crashes, and once punched a superior officer who deserved it. She was tired, underpaid, and running on her 4th cup of synthetic coffee, which tasted like motor oil mixed with sadness. The Indomitable was an old ship. It was not pretty. Its hull was covered with patches and repairs from dozens of battles. Its engines made worrying sounds. But it was tough, and so was its crew. Lieutenant Delheen Lee sat at the tactical station. He was a quiet man with sharp eyes and a calm voice. Nothing seemed to bother him. Even when the ship was falling apart, he just raised one eyebrow and fixed the problem. Una trusted him with her life. Chief Engineer Subin Choi was down in the engine room, arguing with a broken power coupling. She was small, loud, and brilliant. She could fix anything with enough time and enough swearing. Right now, Una could hear her voice through the intercom, calling the power coupling names that would make a sailor blush. "Captain," Dohyun said suddenly. His calm voice had a new edge to it. "We have contacts on long-range sensors. 5 ships. Unknown design. Very large." Una set down her terrible coffee. "How large?" "Each one is approximately 3 kilometers long." Una blinked. The Indomitable was 500 meters long, and it was considered a big ship. 3 kilometers was insane. That was not a ship. That was a floating city. "Are they human?" she asked, already knowing the answer. "No, Captain. The design is completely alien. Energy signatures unlike anything in our database. They are heading directly toward Earth." Una stood up slowly. Her back complained, but she ignored it. This was first contact. Real first contact. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer. "Open a channel," she ordered. "Let's say hello." The channel opened with a burst of static. Then, a face appeared on the main screen. It was not human. It was tall and silver-skinned, with glowing eyes and an expression of complete superiority. It looked at Yuna like she was an insect. "Primitive creatures," the alien said. His voice was cold and arrogant. "I am Fleet Commander Orion of the Valori Empire. Your world has been claimed. You will surrender immediately and submit to Uplift. You will serve the Valori as your gods. Resistance is not possible. Obey, and some of you will be allowed to live." The bridge was silent. Everyone stared at the screen. Yuna looked at the alien. She looked at its giant ships. She thought about everything it had just said. Then she laughed. It was not a polite laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had been pushed too far and was too tired to care anymore. She laughed until tears formed in her eyes. Orion's expression changed. Confusion. Anger. No one had ever laughed at him before. "You dare to mock me?" he demanded. "Do you not understand what we are? We are gods. We have destroyed entire species. Your world is nothing to us." Yuna wiped her eyes and smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Let me explain something to you," she said. "My coffee machine is broken. I haven't slept in 3 days. My ship sounds like it's dying, and the food tastes like cardboard. I am not in the mood for this." She leaned forward, her eyes hard. "I don't care how big your ships are. I don't care how old your empire is. I don't care if you call yourselves gods or unicorns or dancing space monkeys. You don't get to come into our system and demand we kneel. That's not how this works." "Then how does it work?" Orion asked. His voice was dangerous. "You turn around and leave," Yuna said simply. "Or you find out why that's a really bad idea." Orion stared at her for a long moment. Then he cut the transmission. "Captain," Daya said, still calm. "They are charging weapons." "Of course they are," Yuna sighed. "Ray shields. Power weapons. Let's show them what humans can do." The first Valori shot was meant to destroy the Indomitable completely. It was a beam of pure energy, hot enough to melt steel, powerful enough to crack mountains. It hit the human ship directly. The shields held. Orion watched in disbelief. That shot should have vaporized the small vessel. Instead, the human ship was still there, slightly scorched but very much alive. "Impossible," he whispered on the Indomitable. Sabin's voice came through the intercom. "Shields at 73%. Whatever they hit us with, we can take it. Also, I fixed the coffee machine." "Good," Yuna said. "Done. Fire everything." The Indomitable launched its own attack. Human weapons were different from Valori weapons. They were not elegant. They were not beautiful. They were ugly, brutal, and designed by people who had spent thousands of years trying to kill each other. The first missile hit a Valori ship and went straight through its shields as if they were not there. The explosion tore a hole in the hull 300 meters wide. The ship began to spin out of control, fires burning in its broken shell. Orion could not believe what he was seeing. Valori shields were supposed to be unbreakable. Valori ships were supposed to be invincible. This could not be happening. "Retreat," he ordered. "All ships retreat." The Valori fleet turned and ran. Yuna watched them go. She did not chase them. She did not need to. The message had been sent. "Contact Earth Command," she said quietly. "Tell them we just made first contact. And tell them it did not go well for the other guys." Dohin looked at her. "Captain, do you think they will come back?" Yuna sat back down in her chair. Her back still hurt. She still needed sleep. But for the first time in days, she smiled a real smile. "Oh, they'll come back," she said. "With a bigger fleet and more ships. They've never been beaten before. Their pride won't let this go. She picked up her now working coffee cup and took a sip. It still tasted terrible, but we'll be ready. The news of the battle spread through the Valori Empire like fire through dry grass. For the first time in 12,000 years, Valori ships had run from a fight. 2 warships destroyed, 3 damaged. And the enemy? A single small vessel with a tired captain and a broken coffee machine. High Arbiter. Tylo sat on his crystal throne and listened to Orion's report. He did not interrupt. He did not move. His ancient face showed no emotion at all. When Orion finished, the throne room was silent. Thousands of servants held their breath. No one knew what would happen next. "You ran," Tylos finally said. His voice was soft. That made it more terrifying. "High Arbiter, their weapons ignored our shields," Orion tried to explain. "Our scans could not understand their technology. They fought without fear. It was as if death meant nothing to them." "They are insects," Tylos said. "They live for less than a century. How can insects defeat gods?" Orion had no answer. Tylos waved his hand, and Orion was dismissed. The young commander left quickly, grateful to still be alive. The High Arbiter sat alone on his throne and thought. For the first time in a very long time, he did not understand something. This bothered him greatly. Meanwhile, in the Sol system, humanity prepared for what was coming. The diplomatic vessel Olive Branch was sent to meet a Valori envoy ship. The Valori wanted to talk before attacking again. They wanted to understand how primitive creatures had defeated them. Perhaps there was some trick, some hidden ally, some explanation that made sense. Dr. Jie Han was chosen to speak for humanity. She was a xenobiologist, a scientist who studied alien life. She was 42 years old, small and thin, with glasses that kept sliding down her nose. She did not look impressive. That was intentional. The Valori envoy was named Sorth. He was younger than Tylos, but still ancient by human standards. He looked at Jie like she was a puzzle that needed solving. "Explain yourselves," Sorth demanded. "How did you defeat our ships? What secret technology do you possess? Who is helping you?" Jie adjusted her glasses. "No secret technology. No allies. Just us. Impossible. Your species has only had space travel for 200 years. We have had it for 12,000. Your weapons should be toys compared to ours." "Let me ask you something," Jihei said. "In your 12,000 years of space travel, how many wars have you fought?" Sora thought about this. "We have conquered many species. We have put down rebellions. But wars? True wars between equals? Perhaps 3 or 4, long ago, before we became powerful." "3 or 4, Jihei repeated. "In 12,000 years. Yes, we became strong. No one could challenge us. There was no need for war." Jihei nodded slowly. "In our 200 years of space travel, we have had 47 wars. Major ones. Not counting small conflicts." Sora stared at her. 47? Against whom?" "Against each other." The Valori envoy did not understand. "You fight yourselves? Why? That makes no sense." "We argue a lot," Jihei said with a small smile. "We disagree about everything. Politics, religion, resources, territory. Sometimes we disagree so much that we try to kill each other. We've been doing it since before we came down from the trees." She leaned forward, and her eyes grew serious. "Do you know what that means, Sorth?" "It means that every weapon we have was built to defeat ourselves. Every defense, every strategy, every tactic was designed to stop other humans, creatures exactly as clever and dangerous as we are. We have spent 10,000 years trying to kill things as smart as us. And we've gotten very, very good at it." Sorth was quiet for a long moment. "But you are weak, small, short-lived. Yes, GA agreed. We are. We know we are. We have always known. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every day. Predators, diseases, floods, fires, earthquakes, other humans. Everything on our world wanted us dead. She paused. But we survived. We survived because we refused to give up. We survived because when something tried to kill us, we found a way to kill it first. We survived because we are stubborn, angry little creatures who do not know when to quit. You should have died out long ago, Sora said. Probably, GA admitted. But we didn't, and now here we are. What do you want? Sora asked. If you defeat us, will you take our empire? Will you make us your servants? GA laughed softly. No, we don't want your empire. We don't want to rule anyone. We just want to be left alone. We want to explore the stars, meet new species, build things, discover things. We're curious. We're dreamers. We want to see what's out there. Then why fight? Because you threaten our home, our families, our children. Jihee's voice hardened. We will do anything to protect them. Anything. You say you're gods? Fine. We've killed gods before. In our stories, our heroes always challenge the gods. And sometimes they win. Sora looked at the small human woman in front of him. She was nothing. A speck. Her life would be over in a few decades while he lived for thousands more years. And yet, for the first time in his long life, he felt something strange. Fear. I will deliver your message to the High Arbiter, he said finally. But I do not think he will listen. His pride will not allow it. Then we'll fight, Jihei said simply. And one of us will lose. She stood up, adjusting her glasses one more time. I hope it's not us. But I'm pretty sure it won't be. Sora left the olive branch and returned to Valori space. He told High Arbiter Talos everything the human had said. Talos listened. And then he did exactly what GA predicted. He ordered the largest fleet in Valori. History to assemble. If the humans wanted war, they would have it. And this time, there would be no retreat. 1,000 warships. That was how many the Valori sent. Each ship was 3 kilometers long. Each carried enough weapons to destroy a planet. Each was crewed by Valori who had never known defeat, never felt fear, never imagined that anything in the universe could stand against them. High Arbiter Talos himself led the Grand Armada. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Light, and watched the stars slide past. He had not left his throne world in 3,000 years. But this was personal now. These primitive creatures had embarrassed his empire. He would crush them himself. The Armada entered the Sol system on a bright morning in June. Human sensors detected them immediately. Warning bells rang across Earth and all the colonies. Every ship, every soldier, every weapon was called to defend humanity's home. Admiral Junho Kang watched the Valori fleet approach from the bridge of the Earth. Flagship unconquered. He was 61 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. He had 3 grandchildren on Earth. He had a wife who was probably making dinner right now, not knowing if she would ever see him again. He had 200 ships, against 1,000. Wow, he said to his crew. This is going to be interesting. His tactical officer, Commander Yoonji Shin, stood beside him. She was 39, fierce and brilliant, with a reputation for impossible maneuvers. She had a daughter back on Earth, 6 years old, who was probably asking where Mommy was. Orders, Admiral? Yoonji asked. The same as always, Kang said. We hold the line. No matter what. The Battle of Seoul began at 11:47 a.m. Earth Standard Time. The Valori attacked with everything they had. Energy beams that could melt mountains. Missiles that could crack moons. Wave after wave of firepower that should have swept the human fleet away, like leaves in a storm. But the humans did not break. Their ships were smaller, yes. Weaker, yes. But they were also faster, more nimble. They darted between the Valori giants like wolves around elephants. They struck weak points with precision. They covered each other, protected each other, fought together as if they were one great machine. Captain Una Park was there, commanding the Indomitable once again. Her ship had been repaired and upgraded after the first battle. Subin had worked miracles with the engines. Do-hyun had improved the targeting systems. They were ready. Focus fire on their engine sections, Una ordered. Take out their mobility. Make them sitting targets. The Indomitable led a squadron of 10 ships against a Valori cruiser. They swarmed it, hitting it from all angles, never staying still long enough to be targeted. The cruiser spun, trying to bring its weapons to bear, but the humans were too fast. Its engines exploded. Then its shields failed. Then it died, one down. 999 to go. Hours passed. The battle raged across the system. Ships on both sides burned and died. The space between planets filled with wreckage and bodies. But the humans would not give up. Admiral Kang watched his fleet shrink. 100 ships left. Then 70. Then 50. For every Valori ship they destroyed, they lost 5 of their own. The math was simple. They were losing. Admiral, his communications officer said, "We're receiving a transmission from all over Earth. Put it on speaker." Suddenly the bridge filled with sound. Voices. Thousands of them. Millions. People on Earth. Watching the battle. Sending messages of hope and love to the fleet. A grandmother saying she was proud of her grandson. A Kantong-san child saying, "Please come home." Daddy. A teenager saying, "Give them hell." A whole planet. Holding its breath, praying, hoping, believing. Kang felt tears in his eyes. He wiped them away. "All ships," he said, his voice steady. "You hear that? That's what we're fighting for. Not territory. Not pride. Those voices. Those people. Our families. Our home." He took a deep breath. "Anyone who wants to retreat, go now. No one will think less of you. But if you stay, we fight until we can't fight anymore." Not a single ship left. Commander Yoonji Shin looked at the tactical display. The Valori flagship, the Eternal Light, was in the center of the enemy fleet. If they could take it out, the enemy might lose their nerve. "Admiral," she said, "I have a plan. But you're not going to like it. Tell me." She told him. He did not like it. "Yoonji, that's suicide." "Yes, sir. But it might work." Kang was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "Do what you have to do, Commander." "And Yoonji? Your daughter will know what you did. I'll make sure of it." Yoonji smiled. It was a sad smile, but also proud. "Tell her I chose this," she said. "Tell her I love her." She took a squadron of 12 fighters and flew directly at the Eternal Light. The Valori tried to stop them. They shot down 6, then 8, then 10. But Yoonji kept going. Her ship was hit, burning, falling apart around her. She aimed for the bridge of the Eternal Light at the last second. She activated her reactor self-destruct. The explosion tore through the Valori flagship. The bridge was destroyed. High Arbiter Tylos, ancient and immortal, was wounded for the first time in 11,000 years. He felt pain. He felt blood. He felt fear. He was not a god. He had never been a god. The Eternal Light limped away from the battle, its commander screaming orders to retreat. The rest of the Valori fleet, seeing their leader flee, began to break. Ships turned and ran. The invincible armada crumbled when the battle ended. 600 Valori ships drifted as wreckage. 400 had retreated. The Grand Armada was broken. Humanity had lost 163 ships, 163 crews, thousands of lives, but they had one. Admiral Kang sat in his chair, exhausted beyond words. Around him, his surviving crew wept and cheered and hugged each other. On Earth, people poured into the streets. They cried. They laughed. They held their children and promised them that everything would be okay. The gods had learned to bleed. And bleeding, they learned something even more important. They were not gods at all. They never had been. The Valori Empire fell in pieces. It did not happen all at once. It took months, then years. But it happened. The 17 servant species had watched the Battle of Soul. They had seen the invincible masters run from creatures half their size. They had seen Valori ships burn. They had seen the eternal light limp away, wounded and broken. If the humans could fight back, so could they. The Kethni were the first to rebel. They were a gentle species, peaceful by nature, but they had been slaves for 6,000 years. They had been waiting for hope. The humans gave them that hope. Then the Drathi rose up, and the Morosi, and the others. One by one, the servant species broke their chains. The Valori tried to stop them, but their fleet was broken, their confidence shattered. They could not hold the Empire together. High Arbiter Tylos survived his wounds, but he was changed. The wound on his chest would not heal completely. Every day, he felt the pain. Every day, he remembered the battle. Every day, he looked in the mirror and saw a god who had been proven mortal. He did not leave his throne room anymore. He sat in the dark and thought about everything he had believed, everything he had been wrong about. 1 year after the Battle of Soul, a galactic assembly was called. It was humanity's idea. All the spacefaring species, including the Valori, were invited to meet on a neutral space station. No weapons, no threats, just talking. Ambassador Minjae Cho represented humanity. He was 50 years old, a diplomat who had spent his career solving impossible problems. He was patient, clever, and very good at making enemies become friends. His security attaché was Lieutenant Hannah Yoon. She was 28. A veteran of the Battle of Soul, she had served on the Unconquered and watched Commander Yoonji's sacrifice with her own eyes. She still had nightmares about it sometimes. The assembly gathered in a great hall at the center of the station. Representatives from 20 species sat in a circle. Some were massive, towering creatures. Some were small and delicate. Some looked like nothing humans had ever imagined. The Valori representative was young, barely 1,000 years old. His name was Nalan, and he had never known the old arrogance. He had grown up watching the Empire crumble. He understood that things had to change. Minjae stood before the assembly and spoke. "Thank you all for coming," he said. "I know there is a lot of pain in this room. A lot of anger. A lot of history that cannot be erased. But we are not here to talk about the past. We are here to build a future." He looked around at the different species, meeting their eyes one by one. Humanity did not fight the Valori to take their place. We did not fight to become rulers. We fought because we wanted to be free. That's all we've ever wanted. He paused, letting his words settle. We think everyone deserves that freedom. Every species. Every world. No one should be a slave. No one should kneel to someone who calls themselves a god. That's what we believe. Nalan, the Valori representative, raised his hand to speak. "The human is right," he said. His voice was quiet, almost ashamed. "My people did terrible things. We conquered. We enslaved. We called ourselves gods because no one could stop us. But we were wrong. We have always been wrong." He stood up, and for a moment he looked very young and very lost. "The old ways are over. We cannot bring back the species we destroyed. We cannot undo the suffering we caused. But we can change. We can be better. If you will let us try. The hall was silent. Then a Kethany representative stood. She was old, with scars on her arms from decades in the mines. My people have every reason to hate the Valori, she said. They took everything from us. Our freedom. Our dignity. Our hope. She looked at Nalan, and her eyes were hard. But hatred is a prison. If we stay in that prison, we are still not free. So I say we give them a chance. One chance. Let them prove they can change. One by one, the other species agreed. Not all of them. Some wounds were too deep. But enough of them. Minjay felt hope growing in his chest. This was working. This was actually working. Then we propose a coalition, he said. Not an empire. No rulers, no subjects. Just equals working together. Sharing knowledge. Protecting each other. Building something better than what came before. Hannah watched from her position by the door. She thought about Commander Yunji, flying her burning ship into the Valori flagship. She thought about the message Yunji had left to her daughter. Tell her I chose this. Tell her I love her. Yuna had not died for conquest. She had not died for power. She had died so that someday, people from different worlds could sit in a room together and talk instead of fight. Maybe this was that. Someday. The vote was taken. The coalition was formed. It was called the Free Galactic Alliance, and it was built on 3 simple principles. No slavery, no conquest, and no gods. It was not perfect. It would never be perfect. Species would argue. Old wounds would open. Mistakes would be made. But it was a start. After the assembly ended, Nalan approached Minjay. May I ask you something? The young Valori said, Of course. Why didn't you take our place? You defeated us. You could have claimed the empire for yourselves. Why didn't you? Minjay smiled. It was a tired smile, but a real one. We've had empires, he said. Human empires. They all fell eventually. They always do. Power corrupts. Rulers become tyrants. People suffer. We learned that lesson a long time ago. He put a hand on Neelan's shoulder. We'd rather build something that lasts. Something based on respect, not fear. It's harder. It takes longer. But it's worth it. Hannah joined them, standing quietly beside her ambassador. We're not here to rule you, she said. We're here to remind you that no one should. Nalan looked at the 2 humans. Such small creatures. Such short lives. And yet they had changed the galaxy. Thank you, he said, for giving us a chance. Years passed. The coalition grew. Former enemies became allies. Former slaves became leaders. The Valori learned humility. The servant species learned that they had always been strong, even when they didn't know it. And humanity? Humanity finally had what they had always wanted. Not power. Not worship. Not an empire. Just a seat at the table. Captain Una Park retired eventually. She wrote a book about the first battle. It became famous. She still hated synthetic coffee. Admiral Kang watched his grandchildren grow up in peace. He told them stories about the war, about sacrifice, about why some things are worth fighting for. Commander Yunji Shin's daughter grew up knowing exactly who her mother was. She became a diplomat, like Minjay. She helped build the coalition her mother died to make possible. And somewhere out in the galaxy, on 1,000 different worlds, creatures of every shape and size looked up at the stars and knew they were free. Because one day, a species of small, short-lived, stubborn creatures had looked at gods and said no. And the gods had listened. The end.